the bonus, the final thing. For all the tears, stress, heartaches, it usually does work out, right? And I like to share stories of a few of my past students. One student, his whole thing, he wanted to go to Georgetown, right? He did not get into Georgetown, but he did get into BC, and I know everyone feels really sorry for him, right? Poor kid had to go to BC. Went to BC, said, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to get great grades, and I'm going to go to Georgetown as a sophomore. He went to BC, he worked really hard, he got great grades, he got accepted to Georgetown as a transfer student. He said, no way, I'm having too much fun here at BC, I'm not going to go to Georgetown. He ended up starting a web-based parody of the OC called the BC. It caught on like crazy. In his senior year, he was on, I can't remember if it was Leno. It was either Leno or Conan, right? He was on one of those shows. He's now, from another student I keep in touch with who's friends with him, he's now working at HBO Productions, and he didn't go to his first choice college, right? So I didn't change the name of the business though, because of that. But it worked out, right? Another student, the same type of a story. He only wanted to go into film production, right? So he applied to NYU. I said, you could get into NYU, but they only accept 50 students in that major. Why don't you apply, just to the general, the School of Arts and Sciences, and then see if you could transfer it? He said, no, because if I don't get into that program, I don't want to go there. So he applied there. He did not get in, but he did get into BU. And other than that, everything else that he said he wanted to do, he's done. He interned for Conan. He worked for The Onion after he graduated, which is a parody newspaper. He wrote a book that became a bestseller on Amazon, and then he was one of the first writers hired for the Jimmy Fallon show. And he did not end up going to his first choice school. So just to remember that in the end, it does work out, right? Every year students get through this, and parents get through this too. So at the end, I just have the next slide are just some additional resources for you. FAFSA.ed.gov, again, remember, for filling out your FAFSA, it stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. While you can't fill that out until after January 1st, you can get your PIN number. Your PIN number becomes your online signature, and if you have several children, it's the same for all your children. Okay, so you can go now and fill out your PIN number. I recommend they allow you to pick a PIN number. I recommend making it something that's easy to remember. If you have a standard PIN number for your ATM, maybe make it that. Otherwise, I would say maybe your last four of your Social Security. Well, you can't always request a duplicate. You have to answer a challenge question, and if you're like me, I always forget, did I capitalize? Did I put a space in there between Milford and Hospital? Whatever it is. And after 3 times, you're locked out. So I just choose something I can remember easily. Studentaid.gov, it's a government website on the financial aid process. The profileonline.collegeboard.com, that's where, again, I talked about it briefly with the CSS profile. For private schools, you have to fill out this form. Again, as I like to say, you pay to find out how poor you are, right? $18 per school and a $5 registration fee. NASPA, National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators.org. There are a lot of great resources about the financial aid process. And then we'll go through, CommonApp.org. CollegeResults.org is an interesting website. They have something on there where you can put in a school and then find similar schools. But it's based all on data from the National Center for Education Statistics. And the way they determine similar schools are like by the size. There's certain statistics they look at. So they may not always really be a great match, but usually, the top 10, you'll get a couple that are good, good for you. NACAC.net, another great resource. Fairtest.org, that's where there are a list of schools that have gone SAT optional, and I know you've heard there are more and more schools that go SAT optional where they're not requiring any of the tests. Some of those schools don't require the tests for their merit scholarships either. Wheaton in Massachusetts, I think it was 2/3 of their students who received their merit scholarships did not submit their test scores. But a lot of schools that are test optional still require the SAT for their merit scholarships. I mentioned this before, but the choice.blogs.New York Times, it's an interesting read, different articles on the admissions process by Jock Steinberg, who is the author of The Gatekeeper. Admissionhook.com, of course, gratuitous self-plug. That's one of my websites that we have a lot of articles about writing the essay. We also offer a $1,000 essay scholarship. Zinch.com, that's a website out where students can create a profile. In a way, it's a social networking site. You can give shout-outs to colleges and things like that. Some of the colleges I've spoken with, you always wonder, how many are actually using these things, but one of the colleges, they were actively using it to recruit students. So it's free, it can't hurt, right? And then the other thing, which I didn't put up here, is the website that I put together, collegetreasure.com. Now I guess what I'll do is I'll open it up to any questions. Yes?
I know you can take the SAT several times. Can
Right.
you take both the SAT and the ACT and see which one of those you do better on?
Yeah, you can take them both. Then you would decide which ones you wanted to release to the schools. The SAT has introduced the new score choice option where you can choose to send them and a lot of people are confused on this. I think actually some people have explained it to them wrong. Actually, when I hear they came back and said they had talked to someone who told them. But you can't choose your best score from every test. You can't say, okay, last May I did better in reading, this time I did better in math. Those are the only ones I want them to see. You choose your best sitting. And so you can, but not all of the schools have opted into this score choice, right? And so some of the schools you have to send them all the scores anyways. And then if you do opt for score choice, they know that. And so if it's a highly selective school, they're going to assume, okay, this student took it more than twice and bombed it at least one of the times if you opt for score choice. So in my mind, there's not a lot of benefit to it. In my mind, what the score choice was more of a ploy because they're starting to lose market share to the ACT. The ACT has always been that way, that you pick the best day and release only those scores to the colleges. But that was kind of a long answer to your question. Your question was, yes, you could take both and then decide which one you wanted to send to the schools.
So in other words, the ACT you can take also more than once, and
Yes.
that one you really can pick the best one?
Yep, that one you can pick. That's the way you have to do it. You can't release all the scores at once. You have to release them individually by sitting. So, whereas the SAT, you have the choice to either send them every score for when you've taken the test or to pick a single day to show them. And then there's extra costs. It's when you register for the SAT, you can send it to four schools. At that time of the registration, up to about 10 days after you've taken the test, you can change the schools. And then after that, it's $9.50 per school.
If you're taking it in as a junior, what would be the advantage of picking, I want to send it to this school?
No, you probably want to wait and see it. And especially if you know you're going to take it at least one more time. And I think everyone really take it a second time, unless you're close to perfect and you don't need to. But just to see, because there is some element of luck in the test, right? Are the hard sentence completions, are they words that you know, right? And in that case, then it's easy to you, right? And that's so relative with that with vocabulary, depending on how they speak at home, what books they've read, and things. And so there is, I think taking it twice makes sense. More than that, you have to think more. But you're right. You can wait until you take it the second time and then release it to the schools.
If you have twins, do they give you a break if they want to go to the same school?
There are some schools that do that. Not every school, right? Not necessarily. But there are a good number of schools who will give you discounts if you have additional children in it at the same time. What happens, though, is your need is higher, then, right? What they expect you to pay. Expected family contribution comes from parent contribution from income, parent contribution from assets, student contribution from income, student contribution from assets. And so the parental part is going to be basically cut in half. So you'll have a lower expected family contribution with the two. So now you'd want to steer them to schools that would be more likely to meet their need. But yes, there are some schools that would then give you an additional 10% break, but not every, or whatever they have designed as a multiple sibling. I think Quinnipiac has it. I think Stonehill has something like that. But there are some schools, but not all. How close are we getting to game time? I think it's like 8:30, right? Yeah. It was what? So we're about 1 or 2 minutes past game time, which,
So you were prepared.
yeah, wow, that was, okay, thank you very much, and what I'd like to let you know, I have a flyer on here for the College Treasure website. The other thing I have is I'm doing some seminars on the financial aid process, and then what we're doing this year, I'm doing for the first time what I call free FAFSA days, free FAFSA day. We're going to do it one day, Saturday, January 16th at my office, where we are going to have shifts of 8 people come in. We're going to set up the computers, and we'll walk you through filing the FAFSA. If you're interested in that program, if you want to fill this out and give this to me, I have like 40 slots for the day, and I'm pretty sure that's the only day that we're going to do that. I do that with Mike Daly, who is a college funding. He specializes in coming up with college funding plans. Mike and I are doing a seminar just on the college funding in either November 12th or December 12th. November 12th at, it hasn't been finalized, December 12th is at the Milford Library. November 12th will most likely be at the Margaret Egan Center. So if you're interested in either of those, you can email me. I do have some brochures up here, for people who are interested in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.